Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of EAM Experts. Today with us is Luis Echevarria from Puerto Rico. And we're going to be talking about the top five challenges for an operations and maintenance manager. EAM Experts. In this podcast, we will discuss the latest EAM trends and critical issues in maintenance and asset performance. Together with our expert guest, we will guide you on how to transform your maintenance management into strategic competitive advantages. Join us on live episodes or listen to past broadcasts on any of our platforms. visualk.com, LinkedIn, YouTube, Deezer, Apple Music, and Spotify. Subscribe and enjoy. Luis, welcome.
Hi Ernesto, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing great. A lot of things happening, but doing great.
Perfect. It's always good when you have work to do, right?
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
so, so how have you been in terms of this new normal? How have you managed? How have you had to adapt?
Well, I think, I do have a little kid, little daughter, and we have to kind of find ways to get synchronization between my wife and myself. Uh, Time is very important, so we have to kind of communicate and synchronize when we're doing this and that. For example, we also did a space in our house to be able to take calls and do work outside of our normal environment, right? On that end. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, also, in a way, it's been good in terms of the pandemic because I used to travel quite some time on a monthly basis. And since then, I've been here at my house. I've been able to attend uh, the activities that the teachers gave to our daughter and all of that. So on that end, it's been good because I've been spending more time with my family right here.
No, that's always a challenge. In my side, it's been kind of the challenge of finding a quiet space for the meetings. So
Yeah.
it's always something, the neighbors mowing lawn and everything's happening, and the
I mean,
guys upstairs decide to drill a wall, and everything's
yeah. I mean, we tried. I think we kind of managed the best that we can. But I think most of the people
hmm
are kind of in the same spot as you and I are currently right now. So
right.
I think they know, right? If they find or hear something, then yeah, I mean, we are working out of our normal way.
Yep. Okay. So in terms of your background, right? So I know you're a mechanical engineer. You've been with Visual K for how long now, and what's your day to day?
So I've been with Visual K about 10 years now. Uh, Technically, I've been doing many things, right, all over the place. Um, Practically coordination with the clients, coordination with other consultants, doing the actual execution of the work sometimes. So uh, it's a very, in a way, very dynamic type of work where I'm
hmm
not all the time doing the same thing. So it's been good these 10 years. We keep good going this stuff with our clients. So that makes it really good and kind of feel the feedback from them. It's also good so that we can kind of correct ourselves and be able to make it better each time.
Right, and different customers have different needs, right? So you probably have to do a couple of standard things, but there's always one special thing that every customer has that they require, and that's something that's new always. So I guess in a sense you're always always doing something new, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's very demanding on that end, right? There's no specific stuff that all the clients are looking for. There's something out there that it's very specific for them. So on that end, yeah, it's good on that end, like as it doesn't keep you on the same time slot, on the same operating mode all the time.
Okay. So in terms of this subject right now, top five requirements for an operations and maintenance manager are, and I know there's a lot more than that, but should we drop a top five list right now and then talk about it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If we look at our clients and our experience with them, basically a maintenance manager, it's kind of always looking for results, right? For metrics, so that they can measure themselves and find ways that they can incorporate new things or even perform better the job that they are currently doing, right?
Okay.
So in terms of our experience with these maintenance managers, I think on the top five of that list, I would say, and not ranking them from one to five. I think one topic is, for example, reports and your KPIs. That is something very relevant for them. They're kind of always looking for those metrics, those reporting, right? So that they can know exactly where they are failing, where they can be managed better, and where they are exceeding their expectations, right? So that they
Mm-hmm.
can use that and push that over to top management, right? So that they will know exactly, hey, we're here, we're making this, and we're kind of getting into that specific strategy that we're kind of looking for. I would say that that is one.
Right. Where you
Uh,
stand, right?
yeah, where you stand on your strategic related to maintenance, right? Because that's how they're going to be measuring them. Are you exceeding?
Mm-hmm.
If not, then we need to do something different to make it happen, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well,
And when you're managing multi-org or multi facilities or plants, you can always compare apples to apples, right? And that's something that helps, right?
yeah, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
that's number one.
That's number
Um,
one. Number two, I would say that it's space to of centralized information, right?
mhm.
Some area where you can find all the details, right? For example, in the maintenance world, well, the work order, they always need a work order to do that. But that work order gets correlated to, for example, items that they need or activities that they need to perform within that work order, right? Or even, for example, PRs related to that work order. So, on that sense,
Mhm.
they kind of looking for that space, that centralized space of information where they can connect the data and find all the relevant information, right? Instead of looking all over the place for them, right? I think that's one of the key
Right.
things that they really are looking for on that end, so that the work it's kind of better on that end, right? It doesn't take them too much information, too much time in order to get that type of data. Okay. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. In terms of, for example, number three, I would say special reporting, such as backlog, right? Backlog reporting. That is really a key measure of how they are executing, right? How they did the past period, how we are going to be doing the next period, right? That is relevant for them because from there they will know exactly, are we keeping up with what we are programming on our day-to-day basis, or are we not getting to that point? So that really it's one measure that they kind of it's good for them, so that they can know exactly, hey, do I need more resources, or am I fine with my resources, right? So
Mhm.
those are the things that they can use and as tools to in order to go to top management and say, hey, we need this or that, right? Based on what are we doing right now. And that is a good key measure, a good report to get that type of data out of it.
Okay. All
Uh,
right. That's what number three.
that's number three. Yeah. In terms of number four, I would say reliability. I think one of the
Okay.
key aspects for them is uh, to get that reliability of their equipment as a high priority, right? Make them running, optimize. Uh, in that case, for example, be more preventive than having more corrective work, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
could mean, for example, that could impact uh, some major stops or major overhauls, right, into the equipment itself, which on that end will mean more money, right? And they have to keep up with their budget, right? So they need to do their maintenance strategically so that the reliability of that equipment maintains itself and be able to kind of keep up generating anything that they've been doing. If it's manufacturing, then generating those products. If it's energy generation plants, then generating that electricity that they need on that end.
Okay.
Okay. And
Um,
I
Number five.
and then I think last number five would be their availability of resources and spare parts, and also, for example, tools. Right? They need to know exactly
Mm-hmm.
what they have so that they can plan better for the next major overhaul, right? Or the next stop in the power station. So they need to know, do I have the tools, right? What are my individuals that I have on plan that would be available during that time? Uh, do I have them? If I don't have them, then I need to get outside services in there. So it's good to know that availability so that they can plan better the jobs, be able to execute them as they are being planned, and basically know your weaknesses, right? Know when you don't have these kind of skills on your set, then you need to kind of look for that. So I think that is key aspects that they need in order to fulfill their job, right? Correctly.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. All right. So you said a lot of things here, and I want to ask you a couple of questions
Cool.
in all of those. So, in terms of your metrics, right? You have your KPIs. What are
Mhm.
some of the most common ones? If I were starting my own plant right now, what are some of the ones that I probably would need to measure from the get-go? I'm guessing PMs, guessing correctives and all that. Some that come to mind.
Yeah, I think you can use, for example, your PMs over corrective maintenance ratio.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a high number over there, then you're kind of doing good. If it's a low value, then basically you need to get better in that end. The
All
other
right.
thing, the other key
And
aspects
what does that tell me?
that tells you at what level are you? Are you more preventive, uh, corporate, or are you more of a
Mm-hmm.
reactive one? So, and that details the level
Right.
of maturity that you have in terms of your strategics for maintenance. So that is a good fit on that end, to know exactly where you
Mm-hmm.
are and be able to say, no, okay, what do I need to know and or do in order to improve that out?
Right. So if I was around one, I would say I'm not really being very preventive. If I'm less than one, I would be specifically very reactive, right? And then if I were what higher than one and a half, two, three, I could say I'm preventive. Is that how should I look at it?
I think so. In terms of being more prevented, that will tell you that you're really looking at been doing that preventive maintenance in a sort of way that probably will
Mm-hmm.
push you to start looking at that preventive maintenance, and kind of adjusting it a little bit so that you can gain, for example, time available to do other
Mm-hmm.
jobs because you're doing kind of the same approach all the time.
Right.
And probably it will move you to a more, for example, condition based or more predictive kind of maintenance on that end so that it will guide you through the different levels in the in your normal operation.
Yeah, so those are different levels, right? Like if you're preventive, then you could always look up towards your what was the word you used? The
You can say, for example, condition based or predictive maintenance side of it.
condition based.
Yeah, those are the kind of things that you
Mm-hmm.
kind of want
All
to
right.
look for at some point because that will drive your maintenance a little bit better. That will drive the cost, right? Even better, right? So you don't have to do all those preventive maintenance because the manufacturer said so, right? So that is one of the key aspects that you can look on that end.
Awesome. All right. So, in terms of your second point, you talked about centralizing information and being able to communicate, right? I think communication is very fundamental, but it's key when you're working with big plant. Uh, it takes time to walk around the plant, but it's perhaps a little easier when you're sharing information all in the same platform, right? So,
Correct.
what would you say are some of the best practices when talking about this?
Well, in terms of best practices, I think one key aspect that it's kind of been booming on for a couple of years now, it's mobility. I think most of the platforms that we have today, they are kind of looking for that mobility so that the same technician can go out there, execute the job, and then give that feedback back into the system so that the next maintenance can move uh, in a more real time kind of a situation.
Hmm.
So on that end, I think mobility it's a good practice to go to move into. It will give you more details, and you would be able to capture data.
And what about if we were to talk, because from what I can get, right, when you're talking about communication, you're talking about having interaction between different teams and different departments, right? So, for example, you have your planning department, you have your execution, which you mentioned are perhaps the technicians, right? If we were to establish workflows, right? Um, how can we avoid getting into the bureaucratic of it that you say, hey, this is too much data input, and you just are, you're too much, you're just spending too much time on your device or your computer. How can you come up with a better way to go through, for example, a work order?
Yeah, I think on the process flow that could exist on for a specific type of situation. Basically, one of the things that comes into my mind is that we have to keep up with those important details, right? So let's say that the person needs to do A, B, and C and D, right? But if for them it's critical to get A, B, and C, not the D one, right? So in that
Hmm.
aspect, we can look at those A, B, and C and try to come up with, for example, predefined things so that they don't get time to actually jotting down that on the device. Just would be better for them to select from a list, and basically that will speed up their process, right? In terms of selection. So these are your only answers that you can go through. Pick one that is close
Hmm.
to what you're kind of looking for and move to the next one. So those are the kind of things that when you are kind of consulting with the or with the client, those are the things that you're kind of looking for to make it more user friendly the process. So it doesn't get, for example, yeah, I need to input 160 points in there. Doesn't make sense to have that, right? So those are the things I think on the process of going through it that we need to kind of assess them, make them better using technology.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you're basically controlling, right? You depending on the phase where your actual job is, you control the options, who actually inputs that information, right? So you
Correct.
have correct you have a good control of what everyone does and what are their roles. In terms of number three, you talked about backlog.
Yeah.
Um, you, why do we need to keep track of your backlog, right? What's the impact? I've seen people have their backlog as a sacred book that you need to look at every day, and then people who don't look at it at all. What's the difference between those two teams?
Well, I mean, on that end, I think it's more on the way that they operate, and more on what they are being asked for in terms of results. For me, when I have a backlog, a very huge one, it means that either I do not have all the necessary skill set on my
Mm,
team, or probably it would be, yeah, those are open because we are going to be doing that on a equipment stop, right? A major overhaul, for example, where they're going to take care of everything um, in order uh, to do them, right? Because you need the equipment to be offline.
mm-hmm,
So those are the things that when you see those kind of numbers, then it will guide you, right? It will tell you, yeah, how are we doing this? Is that number realistic? Uh, am I doing something wrong? Is my preventive maintenance strategy should be improved with other things into it in order to drill down on that backlog and be able to capture what really is backlog out of all of that pool of data. So there's difference because I mean, people, for some, it's not something that they are being asked for, so they don't. They just say if we do this perfect, and we move along. But for others, that amount of work that keeps spending from time to time at some point can cause you some type of a problem with your operation. So it's
mm-hmm.
important on my end that they need to keep track of it, right? Make sure that they what it's critical has been done and been taken care of because that could impact you at some point harder.
So and that this one sinks a little bit to the next point, right? Where
Hmm.
you mentioned reliability, right? Um, Earlier we spoke about being able to measure, being able to be being more predictive or preventive if you're starting off, right? You want to be going up the levels, right? What would you say is the benefit from being preventive instead of, you know, reacting whenever something breaks? There are some arguments that you would be spending more money because you're not taking the most out of each part when you're doing preventive jobs. But there's also the counter argument where you save more money when you're actually being preventive. How does that work?
Yeah, in that sense, basically, I would say that I think the risk of getting a high job out there, right? And when I mean job, for example, corrective work to be done out there, which can impact those critical equipment. I think one of the key aspects is that when you're looking at that reliability, you're kind of looking not only at the operational part, but also at that risk, right? Because you want to be able to quantify that risk. You want to
Mm-hmm.
say if it's a high risk, uh, let's say. problem, right? That can either shut down you completely, or it will cost you more money that you don't have on the budget. Then you one thing is that then you have to go to top management and ask, for example, for more budget, right, or more money to get that in, and
Mm-hmm.
they will gonna ask you, has your preventive maintenance been done? All right. Many of these equipment could have some type of insurance, right? And insurance companies also are looking at, are the things done properly for that specific equipment. So I would say that it's not that more aspect of, it's not an aspect of how much money are you investing or not, right? I think it's more on the risk side of it. Will that cause me a greater impact on my operation because I did not invest this amount at some point?
Mm-hmm.
So
There's
I think
also
on that.
there's also the I'll not I'll only say this one, right? But the audits, right? That's something that scares a lot of people because they're gonna find something. Is there something to find? So
Right.
that's always something that we
Yeah,
need to look out
and
for.
and no matter how little that's something that they find, they're gonna be make a big aspect of it, right? And those are the things
Yeah,
that they are gonna be drive up that audit, right?
yeah.
And that those are the things that they are gonna come up, and they're gonna ask you about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think on that aspect, being having that more reliable on your equipment, it's looking at that risk side of it, so that it
Mm-hmm.
kind of has all the variables in there
Yeah,
at the moment that
we're
you're
gonna
kind of
probably
looking.
have to censor that word when we edit this
Yeah.
video. um, in terms of that's a lot of points, right? And when you talk about assets for a company that only operates on one huge asset, that has its impact, right? It's not the
Correct.
same when you plan an overhaul when compared to the whole asset is out and you're basically standing there until it is
Right.
fixed,
Right.
and you're bleeding money, right? So
Right.
that's something that when you don't have any spares because it costs millions of dollars, then it makes sense to do your preventive, right? But it also has its value when you're doing the same on smaller equipment because it just adds up to whatever the actual asset would be in terms of your whole plan, right? So it add up.
Correct. Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on your side?
Well, I think in terms of maintenance managers, I think they need to look at, for example, best practices. There's tons of information out there, and there's a really good areas where from the same industry people connect and share ideas. So that is one good aspect to look for. Try to see, look for those best practices. Try to communicate with other people in other areas to know what they're doing, how they're doing, so that you can get new things, right? Fresh new things, and probably implement them in your own way in your operation. I think that is one good aspect on that end. Another one would be a centralized information system, right? For example, an enterprise asset management, so that you don't do, you're not managing, or yeah, you're not managing your maintenance, you're managing your assets through the maintenance side of it. So you need you need something that you can put all of that data so that you can get your metrics out of it quicker, right? Easier on that end.
Yep.
So that at least you can say,
Shout
hey,
out to Info AM, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's part of. I mean, that's not the only thing that it's in there, right? There's tons of software out there, uh, but at least have something that you can kind of manage and be able to get the results out of it, right? Get the data so that you can
Mm-hmm.
make better judgments at some other time. And then the last thing would be, for example, certifications, right? We need, I mean, people need to be knowing the new things, right? The best practices. Getting certified in those, it's a big push so that you can get that into your operation. So certifications on that end are good to have, and basically will drive you, right? The way that you're doing maintenance, it will change as you start picking up new things, right, from those certifications.
Right. Okay. There you have it, guys. So with us, Luis Echevarria. Thank you for your time today. It's been very informational. So thanks for our second episode. Next month we're gonna be talking about reliability centered maintenance, which is very linked to what we just talked today. So stay tuned for more. And if you want to see it on any of our platforms, we are on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Deezer, and there's probably some, and LinkedIn, obviously, and our webpage. So um, feel free to join us and look for the videos in there. All right. Have a good day, Luis.
You too, Neto.
Bye.
Bye bye.